Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
And we're back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's 2026.
So exciting.
Is this the first? Yeah, this is the first pod of 2026, right?
Yeah, because last
Amazing.
week was December still.
That's right. We made it.
Unbelievable.
Well,
we
time is a flatbread pizza.
we got through the holidays.
We did.
And you just finished an 18-mile long run. So how are you feeling?
I'm eating grapes over here because trying to get those glycogen stores up and running. I'm pivoting to a 10-week training block for UTMB Chianti. Ritorniamo in Italia.
Wow.
I'm excited. Thanks.
Great Italian.
Thank you. I am fluent. Just a fun
Okay.
fact
All right.
that I wanted to share.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that share.
Very relevant. No, I actually view it as part of my training. Like I went to high school in Italy. So in my way, I feel like doing Italian lessons, it's fun. And I like just talking, and I love language. I love talking. You know this. I love languages. And so for me, it feels almost like a way of making Italy my home turf. Like I'm giving myself home court advantage wherever I go because I'm going to be like so on my eat, pray, love.
In that way, you can actually use the correct language to articulate what you need at those aid stations.
Exactly.
I need a ham and cheese sandwich.
Biscotti.
I need some biscotti.
Prosciutto crudo, per favore. No, I'm excited. And boy, it came in hot. Coach Cliff came in with an 18-mile long run on a Wednesday. Not normal for me. I feel like it's the first time I've done that in a hot sec.
That's a big
I definitely
Wednesday.
did one before Run Rabbit, but we're back to some big girl training.
There you go.
I'm
Get
excited.
your pants on.
Big girl pants on. I ate a bunch of plant-based chicken nuggets and some macaroni and cheese, and I'm going to be a bottomless food pit so that I can do all the training.
So we started the year off with a little-known race
Sure
over the
did.
weekend called the Athens Big Fork Trail Marathon. And
One of our
maybe-
favorites.
Yeah, maybe if you're a listener who's been with us since the very beginning, you might know about Athens a little bit because it's not the first time we've done the race.
Yes.
But we wanted to start the call out with some conversation around the race, how it went, and you had an 8-minute PR.
I did. I honestly wasn't sure how I felt going into the race. I feel like I had my last year of training had been pretty exceptional, and this fall felt like fine.
Yeah.
I didn't feel unhealthy. I felt very healthy, but I felt like this was one of the first times in a hot sec where I was like on a plateau. And I was committed to seeing the plateau through. I've been on a plateau before. I know that it's part of the process. It's not the most fun part of the process because for me, it was just like a lot of feeling of like, what am I doing? Am I getting better? Not getting the pretty consistent validation that I tend to get from training, which is like, I see the progress happening.
And I feel it.
And I feel it. And I have a lot of empathy for folks in that spot because the training does just look a little bit different. Did I modify what I was doing in any way? Absolutely not. Because again, I knew I was healthy and I know this is part of the process. And I was like, well, I'm just going to put my head down and grind because I know that the wrong thing to do is to get caught up in how I feel in a transient emotion and to freak out and to have a big, rigmarole around my feelings and try to change my training to address an emotional state rather than speak to a physiological state. So it did also cause some reflection because, like you said, I had an 8-minute PR.
Which is a lot. Which is a pretty big.
It's a pretty big PR.
It's been
also
4 or 5 years since
4
we did the race.
years. The first year I did it, I ran the race. It's a very steep marathon in Arkansas,
Yes,
by
what's
the
the
way.
context of
It's like
this?
7,500 feet of climbing, quite technical. So like it's a mountain race.
Yeah, it's a mountain race in January in rural Arkansas.
By the way, our quads have been so messed up this whole week,
Sign
dude.
up for this race. By the way,
Yeah.
it's a donation race, so there is no race fee. It's a real community event.
It's so
like
cool.
the
People are
best of the
so
best.
supportive. Yeah. Shout out to, we had some podcast fans and listeners out on the course that high-fived me. So you guys are the best. But so I've been training for 4 years, not specifically for this race. Like I want to be clear, I didn't optimize for this event. The Athens Big Fork donation-based marathon is not my A event for the year.
The donation-based A event.
A event where the prize is you literally won a giant fork,
Yes.
which is sick as hell. So I've been training for 4 years. I run about 3,600 miles a year, right? So that's about 14,400 miles. An 8-minute PR is 480 seconds. Not a ton of time. So if you divide 14,400 miles by that 480 seconds, I get 30 miles per second of improvement. So every single second of that PR essentially was 30 miles of training, which could be anywhere from half to a third of my, weekly training, which I think is, I think that just goes to show how much work it takes to get better at this
It took you
stuff.
4 years to get 8 minutes off of a PR.
Yes.
Off of your previous time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a ridiculous
And, like,
commitment.
Yes. And I know, again, I know it's not like if you go run 30 miles, you will take 1 second. Like, I know it's not actually how this works. Rather than making a physiological argument, I'm making a metaphorical argument about the amount of time that it takes to progress, to put into context. Because sometimes we get athletes who are like, I've been training for 12 weeks. Why am I not faster? And it's like,
Right.
give me 4 years, bro.
Well, 4 years for 8 minutes.
Yes.
In that, again, I think sometimes that's hard to contextualize with newer athletes, right?
Yeah.
Also, you get better faster
Yes.
the newer you are. So, if you're a newer runner who's only been running for, 5 years,
Yeah.
and then in year 1 you do a marathon, and in year 5 you do a marathon, you could probably, I don't know, take 20, 30 minutes off that PR time or
Yeah.
something ridiculous. Like in ultra running, it's not uncommon to see athletes who, do a 50 miler in their first year working with the coach, and then they do another 50 miler in year 3 of working with the coach, take an hour off.
Yes. Or I mean, if you're doing
even
hundreds, you
more.
can take a day off your
Yeah,
PR.
I mean, just ridiculous PRs.
Yeah. Which ultra running, this is one of the things I love about it.
Yeah. But we're working so hard for those really small increments that show us that we've actually improved.
Mhm.
And I think that just goes to show, one, the dedication that it takes to actually improve, but even more importantly, why we need to zoom out and become masters of this craft, or be on
Yes.
the path to mastery, because that's what ultimately produces the results. And then the longer you do this, the smaller that margin is for, those lofty PRs.
Correct. Like I remember Kipchoge giving an interview where he's like, I had to train for years to take 4 seconds off my marathon
Right,
PR.
look at our, like OTQ athletes, our athletes who are, trying to qualify for Boston and things like that, where we're looking at 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Seconds PR, maybe a minute.
Yeah.
It puts it into context that I think is so important for you guys, the listeners. Like, what would it be like in your lives if you committed to something for so long that getting an 8-minute PR would be like a radical
How
improvement?
many miles are you willing to put in for 1 second off your race time?
Yeah.
Because for me, the answer is infinity miles. I will put in whatever amount of miles I need to, because I love running and I love the process of getting better. I don't just love the PR. The PR lasted for, the second that it took me to cross the finish line.
Right.
What I loved was the 4 years it took me to get back there. And I did love the feeling of showing up to a race that I deeply love and that I felt like I was having more fun at this time, because I was really connected with the competition. I was really connected with the course. And I was riding this line of I don't know if I can PR. Just I didn't have a ton of confidence going into the race. So it was really coming from that place of curiosity of just given where I'm at in training and the fact that I'm optimizing for Chianti, it also does come down to execution. And not just like, again, racing isn't just you show up and you show someone your Strava and they give you, a gold star. You have to go and do the thing. You have
Right.
to like give meaning to that training, and it's not always going to come through. And that's not a bug. That's a feature for me, is the like where the rubber meets the road of it. And the fact that you have to go embody all of the principles that you learned in training and you have to bring it all together. And for me, that's what really energizes the competition, and that's what energizes the race. And so I'm here to say that 4 years of training for 8 minutes, totally worth it. Very fun. I just had the whole day I was like, I was really head down and had to grind because it was a much more competitive women's field than historically. And that's amazing. And I love that. And I think that's a huge, that's to everyone's benefit.
Absolutely.
And I think the big takeaway for me is like training and preparation and finding how your values come through in the training just makes the running and the competing more fun. Whatever that looks like for you. Like that may not be chasing a PR, that may not even be racing, but whatever your arena that you like to give meaning to your training in, that's where the good shit happens.
And allow yourself that opportunity.
Yeah.
You've taken a lot of risks. You've worked through a lot of discomfort and challenge to get that 8-minute PR. Like this was not a linear process. As you just mentioned, this fall, you felt like you were on a bit of a plateau. You were feeling friction with your running and you weren't even sure, you could run.
There was a moment where I was like, I don't know that I'm going to do the
right.
race.
You didn't even think like, I shouldn't even do this because there's no way I could perform at a good level. And the fact that you sat in that, and the difference is, honestly, we see this a lot as coaches. Like the big difference is many people will just stop in those moments rather than to be curious and say, what could it possibly look like on the other side of this?
So much, I think what separates great athletes from merely good athletes isn't how you respond on a good day. Anyone can do well on a good day. What makes great athletes great is how they respond to adversity. And there is always a choice. Who do I want to be in this moment? Am I someone that when I experience a plateau in my training, I say, ugh, I'm not going to get vulnerable and race because the idea of like not winning this marathon in Arkansas is so unpalatable to my fragile ego? No, I worked so hard at this and I owe it to myself.
You didn't win the race.
I did not win the race. So, which is good. Like that is good because it means the women's field is deeper and I'm progressing and the women's side of the sport is progressing.
Right.
And that is what I want. That is to everyone's benefit.
That's the rising tide.
It's a rising tide. And like, I'm here to surf that shit into the sunset.
You're a great surfer.
Thank you. I'm actually not. I'm absolutely terrible at all water sports.
So on the other end of the spectrum.
You also raced and you had a different day.
I had a different day.
Do you want to tell me about it?
I don't know the exacts. Maybe 10 or 12 minutes slower than my previous second best time on that course. And I was
also known as your worst time.
Yes, than my worst time.
You ran your worst time.
I ran my worst time. I ran something like 30 minutes slower than my best time.
What happened? How are you feeling? What did you learn, actually?
Complete ego death.
Yeah.
No,
in a good way? Like in a fun way? Like the first time I ever saw a whale in the wild, because it's just like such a big animal, I feel like I had real ego death because I was just like, oh my God, like that's such a large mammal. So there's very positive ego death.
I think for the first time, maybe for the first time ever, I've never competed so hard and had such a bad outcome.
Yeah.
In terms of the time that it took me to finish that race.
So you're an athlete and a coach. I'm curious what was going through your athlete mind, and knowing you, Coach TJ brain probably kicked in pretty quickly. Could you like walk me through that process?
Well, I think the hardest thing in repeating races, as anybody out there who knows who's like repeated the same routes in their training and stuff, is like you have all of these points of comparison to measure your performance on every step of the way. Like I know exactly the time that I should be at X aid station at, or I should be at the halfway point at this time. And so inherently there are pretty tough comparison traps that I I identified those things ahead of
The
the
way
race.
I always think about it, shout out to our friend Lucy, who's an extremely strong climber who listens. So I'm going to actually try to get my climbing vocabulary
Okay,
correct.
let's see if you can do
out
it.
of deep respect for Lucy.
All right, I'll give you 50-50.
So like if you get a route, you like send it, like if
Right.
you like on the first
An
try, if
on-site?
you like
Is that an
on-site.
on-site?
But I feel like in running you can like unsend something.
Yes.
You can like unflash it.
I unsent
like,
it.
You unsent it with deep love and respect.
Yeah, and you gotta, I think, a couple things. One, I was happy how I showed up mentally, and I prepared for those comparison traps, and I did what I've advocated every athlete does who listens to this podcast before race.
Write a super long Instagram post making excuses.
Tell everybody that you have
thanking your sponsors and telling everyone you had GI
you're not
distress.
fit, you have GI issues, you have an injury, and a mental health crisis.
Yes. Perfect. We call that a hat trick.
The hat trick. I set up my own kind of hat trick. Like I've said before, the key to a good performance is being in the driver's seat of your performance.
I call that having main character energy.
I like that. That's what it is. Like you want to be.
You happen to the race doesn't happen to you.
Right. Like you don't want to be the thing that the race is, dictating to you what to do.
Yeah.
So I set my performance standards before every race.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that comparison traps would be, such an obvious barrier to a good mental performance because how well you're doing in comparison to 2 other times where you won the race.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
Yeah.
What wasn't tough was knowing who I wanted to be in those moments and living into that and racing through that modality the whole time, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because that's the commitment that you make if, you want to be a successful athlete in my mind. Like any athlete who's going out and competing and doesn't know what their standards are, doesn't specifically know who they want to be, their thoughts, words, and actions during that race, what they're committed to, who they're committed to being, simply is going to let the race dictate to them how they're going to respond when they know they're not doing as well as they've done before.
Yeah.
So that's how I was able to compete really hard and still get my worst time, but also probably mitigate like
the full crisis.
A meltdown, a meltdown where you're like walking and not pushing yourself hard. But I think, the coaching brain is like, why was I able to push so hard, but my output levels were so poor?
Yeah.
So this is where it's like, this is why you have a coach.
Yes.
So then, we were able to step back after the competition and go
really
through it. It's really
hard. Like we know how science works. We know how our own brains work, which is why we are really dedicated to the idea of having someone else be that objective check on you. Because especially around things like races, it can be really hard to have a non-emotional perspective on your own performance.
Well, here's the reality.
And we're all going to have giant, Zoe-shaped blind spots.
Here's the reality. And you've been with me. I expressed a lot of disappointment around like running my slowest time.
Also helpful when your life partner's a coach.
Yeah, but also like I think I calculated that I had run something like 18,000 training miles since the last time I'd done that race.
That's a lot of training miles.
And I did worse.
And you did not get that. So, you did not get 1 second for every 30 miles.
I did not. I did not get even close to that.
Yeah.
I undid all of that. Yes. I descended.
You descended.
So, I think one of the things that's interesting is that, I felt a lot of disappointment. I definitely allowed myself to feel that.
Feel the feels.
And didn't, choke that up in service of like,
I gotta learn the lesson right away.
I need to be stoic. I need to, whatever.
I need to be a human gratitude journal.
Yeah. There was a lot of great gratitude for just finishing feeling healthy, which has been a struggle in my last few races last year. So that was big. Race hard and finish healthy.
Yep.
That was really my number one goal for the race. So like when I zoomed out, I was successful.
Yeah.
I raced as hard as I could and I finished healthy.
Yeah.
But the emotional part of being a human is like, okay, why didn't I do well? You're getting old.
Yeah.
Your training doesn't work. You don't have the edge anymore. Like you can't run downhills as fast as you used to. All of that kind of like insufficiency and honestly just like a lot of like self
Mm,
criticism. But
mhm.
I also, in my standards before the race, I made a decision not to blame any kind of a poor performance in terms of the outcome that I got. I made a decision not to blame that on one, my training,
Mm,
two, an injury
mhm,
that I've been working through, or three, my age.
mhm.
So I immediately was like, as soon as I felt those things, I was like, you set a standard.
Yeah,
You committed not to blame this on those things because you know that's the emotional side of you.
right,
That's not the actual rational side that needs to step back and analyze.
right.
So, to make a long story short, have a coach so you can step back,
Yes,
analyze, and bring in context. Like,
yes,
okay, there was more fatigue. We're not optimizing for these
right.
short races anymore. So to run what you used to run when you were optimizing for shorter races,
You need a
maybe,
different approach in the
yeah,
taper and
different approach. We didn't have that approach. And what are three things we can do to improve on the amount of fatigue that you
yeah,
bring into your next race?
yeah,
Okay, here are three tangible takeaways and action steps that we can start now.
yeah.
Boom. Like, okay, now I'm back in the driver's seat. I
Mhm.
didn't have the result, but again, that's part of the process.
Yeah,
And you do need to just experience that and have those tough days. And I think the moral of the story is like, can you have a tough day and still compete as hard as you've ever competed?
yes.
Right. And if you're that kind of person, you're likely going to set yourself up
Yeah,
for a big breakthrough in the future. So that's where my mind's at with all this.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, mixed bag,
Mixed bag.
win some, lose some. Would have loved to walk away with a giant fork, but even more so, I am proud of how I showed up. And again, I'm just like, my like number one objective isn't just like Zoe Rome's success to the detriment of everything. It's like
Right.
I want to see women succeed in the sport. And so I am always going to be excited when that happens
And
and always going to be like the first person to cheer for the woman who's breaking course records and setting a new and higher bar for all of us.
And I think it's good to remember that you have arrived there not because your training has been a perfect line from the bottom to the top of success and progress, but because it's
Because I
been,
showed up for those
yeah,
14,000 miles and like a third of them were great, a third of them were shitty, and a third of them were just okay.
right. And, I was in the bottom third
Yeah.
for my race, but that's to be expected
Yeah.
over a long career. And, you take the knocks on the chin and you just
Yeah.
move on.
And it's not the Leadville 100 or UTMB. And
if
so,
and if that happens in any of those races, it's the same.
yeah.
It's the same approach,
Yep.
And if it's not, check yourself because the amount of maybe where you're putting the keys to your own personal well-being, maybe you need to take a look at that. Like
Yeah.
in the end, we care about this stuff deeply, pursuing mastery, trying to become as great as we can. But it is just running. It
It
is
is
just
just
one
running.
part of a big life.
Yeah.
All right, we didn't even mention what we're getting into today.
Well, let's do
What are
that
we
now.
getting into, Zoe?
We're going to answer a listener question about running shoes with science, which I always love.
Oh my gosh.
And then we're going to talk about how to know if your runs are easy enough. This is the number one question we get as coaches, people in our DMs sending us emails. Thanks to everyone for sending emails. We are looking for more hot or not, so shoot us an email if you want us to discuss something on the podcast. microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. You can also comment on whatever platform you're experiencing this on, Spotify, YouTube. If you're on Spotify, be sure to follow us. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and do all the things that we obligatorily have to tell you to do because the algorithm owns us. And we want to continue to do this and find
boy, we
more
love that
people
algorithm.
with the science.
No, let's connect.
All hail the algorithm.
We're a community here, and I think one of the things that's so cool about this is we get to answer questions that come from the community, and you can be a part of that too. Check out the Foothills program.
Yeah.
We do group coaching, 2 sessions every single month with our coaches, and access to the Slack community and so much more. It's $10 a month if you listen to this podcast, which is a
So
ridiculous
that's like
deal.
$5 an hour if for the community roundtables
And
for like one-on-one time or like face-to-face time with coaches, if not one-on-one.
And it's a great way to support the podcast. Check it out, microcosm-coaching.com, foothills 10 at checkout. Gets you the discount.
Yeah. All right. Here's the listener question.
Yeah.
I've been running in the same model of shoe for years, but they recently updated it and now it feels firmer. I'm getting more aches and pains than usual. My running store says the shoe is basically the same and I'm probably just imagining it. Am I crazy? Does cushioning actually matter for injury prevention?
So you're not crazy.
You're not crazy. So this is something we've talked about a lot. And just to bury the lead here, the evidence doesn't support any type of footwear being consistent with injury prevention or with injury prevention. So softer shoes aren't necessarily better for you. Similarly, we've talked on the podcast about how like running on softer terrain isn't actually protective because people just tend to run harder on soft terrain. So if you're one of those people that's like, I need to find a soft surface, just run slower. That's the best way to mitigate impact, is to actually go the correct pace. So stay tuned for more information on how to do that.
Stay tuned.
But I did want to bring up the study that Coach James, shout out Coach James, one of our in-house road marathon experts, brought up, which is a study from the European Journal of Sports Science by Malisu et al. That was published last year. This didn't make our top 5 studies of 2025, but I still think it's a good one.
It's a good runners up.
Yes.
Honorable mentions here.
Honorable mention for sure. That's science. So 527 recreational runners, and this researchers followed them for 6 months. These were primarily everyday runners who average 8 kilometers a session, roughly 10-minute pace, which is great for our audience. That's a pretty good corollary. It's not Kipchoge. They tracked every injury in a 6-month period, and they asked runners to rate how cushioned their shoes felt. So again, perception, and how cushioned they wanted their shoes to feel. Again, that's a subjective measurement.
Very interesting.
Here's what they found. Runners who perceived moderate or high cushioning had 65 to 76% lower injury risk versus those who perceived lower cushioning. Not 10% lower, up to 76% lower. Runners whose shoes felt less cushioned than their ideal had more than double the injury risk.
That is crazy.
Yes. So runners who simply liked their shoes better got injured less.
So much of this is just going on between the ears.
I love this because the brain is so weird.
Tell us about it.
So that raises this really obvious question. Are softer shoes better? And no, the research doesn't support that.
That's not what this is saying.
The same research group had previously showed that actual measured cushioning does reduce impact loading rates, but the study found that perceived cushioning predicted injury risk even after for controlling for the shoe's actual mechanical properties. So how the shoe matters to you, or how it feels to you, matters independently of its objective mechanical measurements in a lab. So what the researchers pointed to was something called the comfort filter paradigm. Your body has a pretty intuitive sense of what's biomechanically appropriate for it, which is why there's no such thing as dumb questions. Curiosity is a key value.
You love it.
A question that I have a hard time not answering with bitter sarcasm.
Stay non-judgmental in this moment, please.
What's the best shoe? And I'm like, what's the best husband? You just got to try some shit, Your body has a pretty good sense of what's good for it. And if something feels off, if it feels too firm, too unstable, if it doesn't feel right, that perception is really good data.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what your
important.
favorite pro athlete said on Strava or Instagram. How you feel in that piece of gear is what matters most, because that is your neuromuscular system telling you something. So the researchers sort of hypothesized some of the mechanisms at play here. So when impact feels harsh, muscles work harder to dampen vibration. So that's extra fatigue and tissue overload over thousands of reps entailed in running. And a shoe that feels cushioned lets your system relax. If it feels good, you're going to feel good in it. A shoe that feels harsh keeps your system on guard and tightened up. I think especially as a trail runner, I think we've also talked about this, when I went to the Brooks Biomechanics lab in Seattle, they were measuring how good their trail shoes were. They put you in eyewear that tracks your eye movements because they noticed when people feel comfort, their eyes are able to keep a soft and consistent steady gaze 10, 12 feet down the trail. Whereas if you feel insecure in your footwear, your eyes are going all over the place. And uncomfortable shoes might also force more repetitive movement patterns and fewer comfortable options per stride.
So let me jump in and talk
Yeah.
about why this matters and what
Yes.
this means for athletes.
Yes.
I think the number one thing is again, remember what's going on between the ears. Trust your perception. If a shoe feels firm, it that might not be right for you if that feels uncomfortable. It doesn't mean it's associated with higher injury risks though.
Mhm.
One of the things I always tell my athletes to do when they're looking at shoes is like, does it feel comfortable when you first put it on?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't feel comfortable when you're wearing it around the store,
It's not gonna get better.
it's not going to get better at mile 30. It's not going to
Yeah.
break in more and all of a sudden just
Breaking is
feel
not a
better.
thing.
Um, I really think that, you know, it's really key to remember that shoes change all the
Yeah.
time. The models get updated, they get quote unquote improved, but that doesn't mean it's better for your body and where you're at right now.
I would also say, like, we do encourage if you're someone with lower leg injuries, there is strong data and research supporting low drop shoes not being ideal for things like plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis calf issues because that puts additional stress on your lower legs. Sorry,
Yeah.
ultra fans and topo fans and barefoot running fans. Um, Research is research. And also, like, there isn't a ton of data supporting like having a quiver and constantly rotating shoes, but I think that it can be a good idea if it's within your financial resources to like not do every single mile of your entire lifetime in the exact same model of shoe. Like mixing things
Yeah,
up, like
it's good to
within
mix stuff up.
reason. You don't have to be in a totally different shoe every single day of the week. You don't have to have my very silly shoe closet, but like if you're someone who like if you switch shoes and you feel like that causes an injury or like when a model gets updated, small tweaks like that really shouldn't exacerbate something absent some underlying context that would cause that to arise. So like just going from a 5 millimeter drop to a 4 millimeter drop shouldn't really be a problem unless there are other things at play. But like that in and of itself, unlikely the cause of injury.
Yeah. So, the problem isn't firm shoes,
Yeah.
although maybe we hear that a little bit in the media getting a bad rap. But it's really more about the mismatch in perception
Yeah.
and what your personal preference is. If you feel your shoe should be softer, get a softer shoe.
Yeah.
If you feel it should be firmer, try a firmer shoe. Like mess around and figure out what works for you. Again, if it doesn't feel good in the running store,
Not going to get better.
probably not going to get better. A couple bigger picture items. Your body is constantly giving you feedback, so listen to it.
Hmm.
Breathing tells you about intensity. Soreness tells us about our recovery status. Shoes tell us about injury risk. That's what we kind of gain
Yeah.
from this study is that perception mismatch does matter and it
Hmm.
does create circumstances where you could potentially get an injury.
Yeah.
So the best runners and the ones who are able to stay healthy and make progress over time are really the ones who've learned to listen and pay attention and make good decisions based on what their body feedback
Yeah.
is.
So thank you to coming to our 10-minute conversation about why you should wear shoes that feel good.
Hope you like that TED
Science.
Talk.
I love that these scientists were like, we're going to take 6 months to explore why people should wear shoes they like. Love that.
I mean, but that's good.
No,
for
it is
people
good
to
science.
hear.
It is.
As
like,
much as we make
this
fun
is
of that.
new. No, I'm really not. I'm just being facetious. But
You're
it
so
is
funny.
It is good science because it helps color in the edges. Because, like,
Yeah.
again, I think people always assume softer shoes mean lesser injury risk. No, the science doesn't support that. So but this thing of like, if you detect your shoes don't feel good, that's something worth paying attention to. And that is correlated with injury risk. That is fascinating. And again, I think it shows like, screw what shoe companies say, screw what influencers and your favorite pro athlete who's paid to say that shit says. Listen to your heart, babes.
Right. I really wish that runners would just go into a shop and try on like 10 different shoes.
I just buy shoes that are purple.
Without
Never
right,
fails.
exactly. Like that's just as bad as just deciding like every runner I follow likes Adidas. They're all sponsored by Adidas. Shit.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with why they like it? No, it couldn't.
Yeah.
It couldn't. Why do I like Adidas? Well, obviously because fast people like Adidas.
Exactly.
So just go to the shop and try some stuff on
Yeah.
and figure out what works best for you. Don't get stuck in those influencer motivated traps.
Nope. So, okay, what
All right, segue.
really sparked this conversation for me is because I wanted to get curious about why like 99% of what we do as coaches is tell people to run easier or slower. I like the word easy because slow feels loaded, and I think it
Yeah.
carries enough emotion
Too
that
judgmental.
people just like they get like hypnotized by it. They have feelings that preclude making informed decisions around their training. So I think that what we're talking about is how to know if you are making the most essential mistake of running your easy days too fast, and why getting easy runs easy is the single highest lever change that most runners can make. Like when we're talking about low hanging fruit, this is something that like 99% of people can do just to make a
You can do it.
unsubstantiatable claim.
You just have to be careful about what's going on
Yeah.
between the ears.
Yes. So before we get to the brain, maybe let's dive into the physiology, Coach TJ. This
All
is
right.
your
I love it.
jam.
I love it. So here's the paradox why slow running actually makes us faster. So the physiology here, your body has two distinct energy systems that
Mhm.
require different training stimuli. You have your aerobic system, that's fat burning, sustainable, builds endurance base. And then we have our glycolytic system,
Mhm.
and that's our carb burning, powerful, limited duration. So the sprinting. That's your 10,
Workouts.
10-second max effort. And so the aerobic adaptations that we get, it's mitochondrial density, capillary networks, fat oxidation capacity, aerobic enzyme production. This stuff, these essential aerobic adaptations for the endurance athlete only happen at low intensities. So that's going to be zone 2 and zone 1 running. And the moment you cross over into moderate intensity, so that's the gray area, that danger zone that
Steady
we
state.
really don't want
Zone 3.
athletes spending a lot of time training in unless it's for very specific reasons.
I had a zone 3 workout today and I was like, oh God.
Right?
Oh, this feels like I'm speaking in a language I don't know very well.
Because that's the gray area.
Yes.
And when we move into that area, we're also shifting our metabolic pathways. And we're going to make these adaptations less specific and less efficient.
Yeah.
And so this isn't just about taking it easy. This is about targeting the correct physiological system or the right energy system for the adaptations that we know creates a faster, more durable, an athlete that has more endurance. And again, we know this because the adaptations that are responsible for that are mitochondrial density, greater capillary networks, better fat oxidization capacity, aerobic and increase in aerobic enzyme production.
So without getting too into the weeds, I think something that could be helpful here is talking about ventilatory threshold, or the first ventilatory threshold,
VTs.
VT1. So the point where breathing becomes noticeable and like conversation becomes choppy, much harder. Where should easy running be?
Easy running should be below VT1.
Okay.
Or LT1 or below, in zone 2 and zone 1. That's, a good way of thinking about it.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. So, we want true easy running to be below VT, like below
Yes,
ventilatory
below.
threshold 1, not near it, not around it, not in the neighborhood, just below it. Because research shows that most recreational runners default to running at AT or just above VT1, so
Right.
steady state, which is the worst possible zone for the training adaptations we're looking for.
Right.
So a lot of times, I think the messaging that gets lost in podcasts and on social media is like, you're running your easy days too hard. And people are like, I'm not running at that hard. I'm running 12-minute pace. That's objectively not that hard. You're still running at a little too moderate. So
Exactly. And that's, again, what's tricky. And I think we'll talk a little bit about the RPE here, but that's what's so tricky about this. Because especially for newer athletes, you can be running right on top of your aerobic threshold or at your VT1, and it still feels kind of easy and sustainable.
Yeah.
But likely that's a false confidence because your run isn't actually that long, so we don't really actually test.
You don't hit those trip wires where your body gives you feedback like, you overdid it, sis.
Right. Like you're not,
and now you're walking
2 hours into a run, and you're not. There's a lot of other compounding factors that could help you understand you're going too
Mhm.
fast, but you're not really there yet. So we have to build awareness. We have to use RPE. We have to have a fundamental understanding of what it feels like to run in zone 1 and 2 to be successful.
So I want to talk about some research that looks at training distribution. So basically, how hard are people training? So when you analyze in a scientific way training of elite athletes across a lot of different endurance sports, you hear about the 80-20 principle, which is like validated time and time again. And you can get into the weeds on pyramidal or whatever, but for the majority of high level or for pretty much all. Like, there's
All
gonna be, like,
elites.
1 or 2 elites who do some, like, dipshit thing that they get away with. Congratulations to them. We're not talking about them today. But 80% of training volume at low intensity.
Yeah,
So
at
that's
least.
RPE 4 to 6. And then 20% at high intensity, so RPE 8 to E, threshold and above. That is the most replicated finding in endurance sports science. Like, let that sink in. Like, this is not something where, like, it's nuanced or the evidence is mixed. This is something where, like, it's like theory of gravity.
It's not
kind of
mixed.
stuff.
We
It's
know
not
it to be
mixed.
true.
So this is across running, cycling, rowing, cross-country skiing. When you analyze the training patterns of recreational athletes, typically what comes through is a pattern of 50-50 or worse, with the majority of their training in the gray zone. So if you're someone who's listening to this and you're like, ugh, not me, I am actually extremely good at keeping my easy runs easy.
Oh,
Even me, I am letting this sink in because I think we should all walk away with this with a dose of humility of like,
yes.
ooh, am I really 80-20ing to my potential? Because the research would say the majority of like sub-elite athletes, no, the majority. So like, again, there's going to be people on either side of that curve. There's going to be some amateur athletes who are rocking it. There's going to be some that are like probably too far gone, not listening to this podcast. But what I really want is
Too
like
far gone.
too far gone. They're not listening. They're not here. That's
Oh,
okay.
no.
They're probably not that into the weeds on training
Those
podcasts.
God.
But if you're someone here who cares about your training, think long and hard and objectively and truthfully and honestly yourself. Are you really 80-20ing? And so there was another study that came out in 2025 by Rosenblatt et al. In Sports Medicine that was a meta-analysis, love, of 13 studies with 348 athletes, recreational and elite. For recreational athletes, there was no statistical difference between strict 80-20 polarized and other approaches. So there's some information that recreational athletes might actually improve more with pyramidal training. And the key insight is that strict 80-20 here isn't magic. What matters is that the easy days are easy. So don't get too caught up in like pyramidal 80, like whatever, like easy days easy.
Yeah.
Is again what we're saying here. The exact percentage, so like getting too in the weeds on your Strava and looking at like every single one of your heartbeats and like cardiac strokes, that's not what we're trying to do here. Most runners fail at the easy part, not the details. So the counterintuitive truth here is that elites run slower on their easy days relative to their race pace than recreational runners do. Kipchoge's easy runs are 7:30 to 8-minute pace. His marathon pace is 4:38. So
Wow.
that is a 3-minute differential.
I mean, how many folks listening to this actually can step back and say that their marathon pace is 3 minutes different from their average easy pace?
Yeah.
I know for a fact, having coached hundreds of athletes, that
No.
probably
Yeah.
80% of, if not 90% of the people that I've coached would not have that differential.
Yes.
And yeah, Kipchoge has a huge aerobic system, but he could be running his easy days at 5-minute per mile pace.
Yeah.
That's probably zone
That probably
2
feels pretty
for
easy
him.
for yeah.
Like, honestly, because his threshold pace is probably
Sublactate. Yeah.
not much faster than like 4:15 pace per mile. I don't know, 4-minute per mile,
Yeah.
something ridiculous. So he is going so slow
Yeah.
in comparison to the pace he's racing at.
And often I will have newer athletes be like, but it feels hard, but it feels awkward. And like, it will feel awkward, but that's also not an excuse. Like, you aren't an amazing, I mean, you are a beautiful, special snowflake. Welcome. You're a miracle. We're all miracles. Thank you. But you're not like, most likely you don't defy exercise physiology. And if you
Right.
do, please get in touch. You sound fascinating.
I mean, stop trying to find excuses to
Yes.
appease
The fitter
yourself.
you get, the easier it will be to run easy. I have been slowing my easy days down. Again, N of one, you should
I
never
agree.
listen to some lady on a podcast and be like, well, if she can do it. But I offer that as like, I am also a human on this journey of slowing down. I have also been wrestling with my ego and Strava for years. Welcome to the club. But when you look at the research, there was a study that found that most recreational runners are running their easy days only 60 to 90 seconds slower than goal pace. And they should be almost doubling that.
Yeah, absolutely. Slow it down. And here are 5 signs. We're going to go through the 5 signs.
There's only 5, as with all things. This is just going to keep leaning into the fact that this is a recurrent bit. We don't like lists. We hate this, but it's working.
No, one day we're going to come out with there is one sign that you are running too slow or too fast. And then people will be blown away by that. So the first sign is you can't hold a continuous conversation.
Yep.
This is the most obvious one because we always talk about easy running being synonymous with the conversational pace. And so do a talk test. Could you speak in complete sentences, not just a few words between breaths?
Yeah. Could you leave a non-embarrassing voicemail?
Oh, I love that. You can also recite the Pledge of Allegiance without gasping as a way to check this out. Can you do that? I'm not sure if you can, but I'm going to challenge you to it. Sing Happy Birthday.
I like to sing Taylor Swift songs.
Right.
I call it the Eras Tour test.
Sing, your favorite song lyrics. But, a good way of breaking this down is if you're running in the gray zone, you're going to be about 2 sentences conversational. To be under and within zone 2, you need to be 3 to 4 sentences conversational. It's pretty chit-chatty.
Here's a sign that I know I used to run too hard. I used to run with my phone and my sports bra.
Yeah.
And once, because I'm a outdoor journalist, Alex Honnold used to be the first person in my address book. And I bra dialed Alex Honnold and left a 12-minute voicemail of me just breathing heavily.
Oh my God, that's so
from
creepy.
Inside my sports bra.
What a freak.
I know. No response.
No response. He didn't call back.
He wasn't like, you need to slow your easy days down, girl.
He was like, I can tell you're running too hard. Dude, that's so weird.
I know.
I hope he sends an apology.
I didn't know what to do, so I never addressed it. Sorry, Alex Honnold.
Classic. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
There is science to back this up because the talk test correlates very closely with ventilatory threshold 1 in research studies, because when breathing becomes labored enough to interrupt speech, you've crossed out of the aerobic zone. Nasal breathing is even more restrictive. We don't endorse nasal breathing. There's really no research to support that improving performance, but it can be like a soft vibe check of like, if you're able to nasal breathe, again, you don't need to be doing like, anyone who says you need to be doing nasal breathing on your runs is fucking stupid. Don't do that. Get off Instagram, go touch some grass. It can be a modality. This is one of several ways, as in leaving Alex Honnold a voicemail, that you can put like a little gut check on your effort level.
Yeah, a very small gut check. If I get 5 emails tomorrow about nasal breathing, I'm going to freak out. So please
go
take
touch
that
grass.
one with a grain of salt. I think a good one that I have used is call someone on your run.
Oh yeah.
And see if you can chat with them. I
I call my mom sometimes
once in a while on my recovery days to see if I'm like truly chit-chatty. And it's surprising how much I could probably slow down on a lot of those days.
Whenever we do runs together, I just chat at you the whole time. So that's how I know I'm conversational.
And I don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say
so
anything.
I'm actually running at VO2 max.
Exactly. That's why my ventilatory threshold is so high, is to sustain this level of speech output.
It must be tough. Are you nasal breathing right now?
I'm circle breathing. Like the way that pro saxophonists like achieve their art, like that's how I'm able to speak so rapidly without stopping.
For our podcast listeners out there who are not on YouTube, just to let you know, Zoe is not wearing a Breathe Right strip right now.
Correct. Yeah, I am eating grapes.
All right. Sign number 2. You dread your easy days. The easy day dread.
Yeah, I feel like the psychology is big here, because if easy runs feel like something you're getting through, they're not easy enough. Like it feels like it should feel like a walk in the park, like a day on the beach cakewalk. True easy runs should feel easy, enjoyable, like something you legit look forward to. Like to me, they feel like a physiological reset. If you're relieved when an easy run is over, that's a sign you went too hard.
I couldn't agree more. And the psychology is really interesting, but the physiology is really much more important in my mind.
Mhm.
Like chronic sympathetic nervous system activation from too hard training sessions creates systemic stress.
Yeah.
We're not giving our body the time it needs to actually recover. And so that's going to, over time,
Yeah.
erode your ability to progress and to grow. So your brain learns to associate running with stress and not with recovery. So unfortunately, we really do need to slow down those runs in order to facilitate the recovery because our brain is thinking like, the running is stressful. And
Better
it's,
activate all the warning systems.
right. And it's going to activate those things, especially and that goes into contrast, especially with these narratives that we have around like running being my therapy.
Mhm.
Running is where I go to de-stress. And it's like running, actually activates your sympathetic nervous system.
I mean, running at pretty much any intensity is stress, like definitionally, because it provides enough stress for your body to adapt to it. It is stress. I like to use the word stimulus because it feels a little less charged. When people hear
Yeah.
stress, sometimes they can freak out.
Woo.
But like, I know that people can feel like, and there are demonstrated research wise mental health benefits to running, but you also have to realize like there is cortisol involved, there is breakdown involved. Slowing things down mitigates that, but it will never fully eliminate it because you are still doing a thing.
So, DeJong et al.
Actually, okay.
2025. Do you want to do this one?
I do. I just interviewed her. I just interviewed her for my book.
I can't wait to hear about these poor sleepers.
She was, I interviewed her about a different study, but she's like one of the leading experts on how to take biological sex differences into account when constructing studies. And she was like so cute and fun. Like,
all right.
So like, I always get like so nervous to interview scientists. I'm like, I have to sound so smart. And like I think this is so funny because I feel like influencers online are always like, trying to sound like all pseudo intellectual and like research says that if you apply the substrate of N of 1 sub 3 threshold, you're like, what? But then when you like talk with actual scientists, like she was just laughing the whole time. I was like, you're the most delightful.
And she's probably pretty good at explaining something that's relatively complicated in terms that, us podcasters can understand.
So shout out to you, Jans. So her study that came out in 2025 in Applied Sciences was a study of 425 recreational runners and found that poor sleepers were almost 1.78 times more likely to get injured. Running too hard on easy days means elevated cortisol, which means disrupted sleep, which means impaired recovery, which means higher injury risk. So if you're dreading runs and sleeping poorly, your training intensity is likely a cause. Again, it's not one of one. If you sleep bad, your running is bad. All of these things are contextually intertwined. It's complicated, but I think this is one worth looking at, and I didn't want to throw her study in here. So
nice.
Shout out to you.
So the reframe here, easy runs, obviously, we've talked about this before. They're not junk miles. They can become active recovery. They can help you recover from those harder sessions and begin to assimilate the work. However, if you're going too hard, you're not only going to undermine that process, you're also going to undermine the aerobic development that does happen when we do those really easy miles. So if you're really good at this, you get the recovery and you get the aerobic development simultaneously. And if you're really bad at this, you don't progress at all. So they really do need to feel like kind of a moving meditation. For me personally, like I'm always checking in with my breath on my easy runs.
Yeah.
Like that is the way in to understanding if I'm truly going easy. I'll rip out the talk test when I'm thinking maybe I'm approaching that gray area to double check. So you might hear me running down the sidewalk talking to myself.
I like to sing.
I know you like to sing. I caught you singing earlier today when you ran by me during your run. But the breath is so important. Is it relaxed? That's an easy question to answer. If you don't know what relaxed breathing is, you should start a meditation practice.
Yeah, you should go see a doctor, probably.
You should just contact your
Stop listening to this podcast, pull over, and call an ambulance.
So if your run feels like work all the time, if your breath rate is elevated, if you can't chat, you're going to be running too hard.
Yeah. So the third sign that we want, again, like we always want to approach. Okay. The third sign is your heart rate doesn't drop pretty quickly post run.
Yeah.
So again, the data is never the whole story, but I think this piece of data is a great piece of the puzzle to add, or like another sort of star in a constellation of information. But the metric of heart rate recovery, or HRR, is how quickly your heart rate drops in the first minute after stopping. So after a true easy run, your heart rate should drop 20 to 30 beats in the first minute. If it's only dropping like 10 beats, you were working harder than easy. And again, this will also progress as you get more experience. I think it would be pretty normal for lesser experienced runners for that to stay a little more elevated.
Yeah.
And this is also something that, again, why you take data with a grain of salt will be complicated. Different, phases of the menstrual cycle. This could look a little bit different if you're getting sick, if you're getting pregnant, if you had a beer, again, or if you
Heat,
had
humidity,
humidity, caffeine, Adderall, all the things. So the physiology here is that a slower heart rate recovery indicates significant sympathetic stress and nervous system activation. Easy running should keep you predominantly in parasympathetic mode. And this is why easy runs should enhance recovery rather than impairing it.
How to use this. So at the end of your run, stand still, watch your HR for 60 seconds, see if it starts to come down. Track this over a few weeks, see what patterns emerge. And your heart rate recovery, should improve as your fitness gets better.
Yep.
But also as you better calibrate your effort level on these runs. So a couple things that can help with that process over time is just simply getting fitter and becoming
Yeah.
more aware.
Sign number 4 that you're running too hard is you feel flat or heavy on your hard days. So, a pattern that we see a lot with athletes, particularly beginner athletes or athletes that may not be working with a coach who they pay to professionally hold them accountable to running slow enough, is that workout days will start to feel like survival mode instead of execution mode. I would also say if you consistently dread workouts, that may not mean you have the get up and go that's required to execute them in the way that you know you can or that you want to, because you're spending your money on your easy days. So if you can't hit target paces and efforts, even though you should be able to, if your legs consistently feel dead, heavy, never fresh, regardless of how much you sleep, you feel like your nutrition is dialed, like all of those things, this can be one piece of that puzzle. The root cause here is that that easy days that aren't actually easy don't allow you to recover. You're just accumulating fatigue across the training week in a way that's not systematic and it's not strategic. So by the time those hard days arrive, you're already depleted and you've already basically like overdrawn your energy bank account, because that gray zone training will make it so that you don't feel fresh, you don't feel sharp, you always feel like, even if workouts don't feel like a battle, they'll more consistently feel like, eh. And again, that doesn't mean every workout needs to be PR. You shouldn't always be impressing yourself and getting a bajillion Strava kudos, but if you always feel flat, that's one of the, like, especially as athletes progress and as we build volume and start to do harder workouts, if you don't feel like you're able to level up, that's often like one of the places where we'll see in more intermediate advanced athletes, like people who have been training for a while, it's like, are you sure you're running easy enough? Because you might actually be holding yourself back. You've developed this habit that just hasn't held you back until we've tried to push into this next level. So if you feel like you're on a plateau, hi,
Yeah.
that would be a really good place to look.
The quality of your workouts depend on the quality of your recovery.
Yes.
So if you want to train hard, you have to recover hard as well. So again, our easy runs and our active recovery days, those 4 out of 10 RPE days help to facilitate that. Running easy, you know, if you're going to run those days too hard, that's going to steal the intensity from the days that you actually want to be harder.
Yeah.
And we're going to end up undermining the growth process there because we're not able to access the intensity we need to access on those workouts to perform and to get
Yep.
better. So again, polarization is really, really key.
Yeah.
Learn to polarize your training, and you've unlocked basically the first level of our training pyramid of priorities.
Yes. This is the like foundation. Sign number 5, you aren't running easy enough, is your easy pace hasn't gotten easier. I don't want us to I don't think a great objective, like hot take, I don't think we should be like, the easy pace should always be getting faster. I think that that's complicated and I'm not ready to offer that as a solution. But as your aerobic fitness improves, the same pace should feel progressively easier.
Agreed.
So this will happen because running easy days too fast prevents the aerobic adaptations that would make that pace feel easier, because you've been training the glycolytic system instead of the aerobic system, and or undermining your ability to even access the glycolytic system because you've like gone too hard on your aerobic days. So without truly easy volume, you're just not building the mitochondrial distancy that you need to run efficiently.
These tests, I think, can be helpful. Same route, same conditions, same time of day. Does the effort feel easier than 3 months ago?
Not faster, easier.
I, i- if not, your training distribution is likely wrong. True aerobic development creates free speed. So same effort, faster pace. But I do think that it's important to recognize when you're doing this test, consider the context.
Yes.
How much fatigue are you taking into
Yeah,
those
this is not like
sessions?
you can bang out any
Yeah.
Wednesday. I would honestly say, and that maybe doing like a threshold, like a rested threshold test, maybe even better.
Yeah.
Again, like this is maybe not the most ideal solution, but if you're someone who is like really, you're listening to an hour of content on if you're running easy enough, you might be a good candidate for trying to do like a more objective test for this.
And I think that can be helpful for athletes if they just understand the context that, just because you're doing that same run that you did 3 months ago, under the same conditions at the same time of day doesn't necessarily mean the same effort's going to feel easier or the same effort is going to result in a faster pace. It's just likely, if those things are not happening, it's likely there's other underlying conditions that we
Hmm.
have to consider.
Yeah.
So, what's the bottom line here?
Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, the runners who get faster aren't the ones who train harder every single day. They're the ones who are able to train easy when it's time to be easy so they can actually train hard when it counts. Again, the number one thing that we see as coaches is people don't go easy enough on their easy days, so they're actually not able to go hard enough on their hard days. Like I also like to run hard. Running hard
Yeah,
is fun, pushing is fun. If you actually want to do that, if you want to have the discipline to run fast, you have to have the discipline to run easy. And again, like the fact that this is so prevalent means that there are things happening in our world, in our brains, and in our bodies that make truly understanding and internalizing this principle difficult, but like do not let pride and ego or a misunderstanding of exercise physiology be the thing that hamstrings your running progress.
I know. And I think that easy running can often, for some athletes, be kind of locked in with this attitude of laziness. I'm not working hard
No pain,
enough.
no gain.
Right. No pain, no gain. But this is a strategy.
Yeah.
It's literally about having discipline and understanding the physiological benefits of doing your training at certain effort levels and polarizing your training. If you have the discipline to do those things and you do those things well and you commit to it over time, you will get faster.
Yeah.
You will get stronger. You will have better endurance. Every few weeks, check back in. If you're really committed with that process, every, 2 to 3 months, do a threshold test. And I bet you'll see that you are starting to get better.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. And we can't wait for the next one next week. As always, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and microcosm-coaching.com. Check us out on the web.